women who had a lascivious past, and now they're coming back to the church. But here's the thing, because you came back to us, in repayment for you coming back to us, we've got a myriad of simps that you can choose from, and then you can end up marrying one of these dudes.
Yes.
Feminism has taken over the church, and your belief about men taking these born-again virgins and how the church is like more prescribed towards women.
Oh, because they always argue the female point of view. It's like, I can't even have a conversation with the Christians. It's unfortunate, because when I was having that conversation I was talking about earlier with the cheating, the Christians' first response was, well, they can divorce. Like it says in the Bible, they can divorce. And I'm like, we should be on the same team.
Yeah.
We should believe the family should stay together, but you guys immediately take the woman's side, and you guys never talk about these women that don't sleep with their husbands.
Yeah.
And I've talked to so many divorce attorneys that tell me this, that I know this is a problem. And I never hear you guys preach about. I've never heard you preach about submission.
I will specifically ask Ruslan about
You guys say you should submit to each other. What the hell does that mean? Like, genuinely, and this is when Rollo, I watched his stream on church a couple years ago where I was like, Rollo ruined church for me. Because once I saw this, like, because I always felt like there was something like weird about church.
Sure.
And I couldn't I couldn't describe like what. And it really bothered me, right? Because like, I think religion's great. Like, I believe in God, I pray, but there was just something weird about it. And I seriously, I couldn't figure out what. But I remember sitting in Catholic school, and they would have these chastity speakers come in. And it would always be the same thing, like the guy with the ran-through chick. And they would come, and so they can't tell me they don't preach this, because y'all literally, and these were Christians too, they weren't even Catholic. Well, some of them were Christians that came. So you guys cannot say, oh, we don't preach this. No, I was in high school. You guys literally preached this to me. So I will not, none of this. And they'll talk about, these girls will come in and say, oh, I did all this stuff, whatever. And now, like, I found this husband, I found God. And I'm like, well, this only worked because she was hot. One of the girls that came was literally an ex-America's Next Top Model. That is not going to work for your average chick, all right? This worked for the hot chick. And what the real message should be is, hey, you have this husband waiting for you if you make these choices. But if you fuck around too much, there ain't shit at the end of this tunnel. I think that's a little bit more on, unless you're really hot, you'll probably get away with it.
Isn't it funny?
Hot people just have privilege. Like, life is life, And so that's what, it's just like not honest. Christian guys will clip me, and like they'll like, there's this one guy that said in the title that I rejected Christianity or something. And I'm like, isn't that lying? Like, you guys, like, and I'm like, you're not having this conversation in good faith if that's what you're putting in your title. This is a Christian
channel, and they're literally lying about you.
Yes, in the title, and that's not what I said. I said, like, this is something I disagree with in the church. And I don't remember word for word what the title is. So what they'll do is they'll say, oh, it was something like that. Yeah. And so I was just like, how are we supposed to have a conversation in good faith? And my issue with the Christianity is, I'm like, they preach like to women and they never talk about the men's issues. There's a corn, and I don't remember, someone told me this, so this wasn't me, but there's like a corn addiction group, but there's a social media addiction group. Right. And there's all these women that lead the relationships. And then I see pastors coming on and saying, oh, well, if your husband's not leading you to God, then how are you supposed to follow him? And I'm like, your submission is not supposed to be dependent on your husband's behavior, just like his provisioning or whatever isn't supposed to be dependent on your behavior. Like, you can't. And so that's what I was realized. I'm like, they're all just like, there's a lot of simps in the church that just lie to us. And it pisses me off, because you're telling us, like, you're selling women this dream that's not true. And then I'll see these, like, I was in church, right? I was in this Christian church for a while, and I would see like this 25-year-old chick who is a virgin. She's fit, she's feminine. I'm like, why is she not like married? This is the ideal, right? And I'm thinking, like, there's no men in the church. There's like, they're all like, I know, and the stats will say it's 50-50, but if you look under a certain age, and the singles groups, like, there was singles like ministry, like setting people up in this church, and it was like 90% women that were signing up to this. And they also don't talk about how the women are worse in the church. Why are guys saying that? Why are guys saying that it's a red flag if there's God first in your dating app? Why even, and I'm Catholic, all right, but like, why do we have such a bad reputation conversation? And the churches will come in, and it irritates me because they're not honest. Like, you're coming in and you're saying, oh, well, it's just the churches you go. Not all churches are like that, but you're not addressing the actual problem. And that's what I just find it annoying. It's like, and so I'm not trying to take away from church, because I think church is a great thing.
Yes.
I think marriage is a great thing, but
You're just pointing out some flaws in the institution.
How can we fix it if we can't even identify it's a problem?
Yeah.
And you're selling women this bill of goods that at 28, that any guy that she's going to be attracted to is going to wait.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just, that ship sailed at 22 what nowadays it's like 15.
So you feel like the church is having a part to play in this idea of having women who had a lascivious past and now they're coming back to the church. But here's the thing, because you came back to us, in repayment for you coming back to us, we've got a myriad of simps that you can choose from, and then you can end up marrying one of these dudes.
Yes, and the women
and the church is telling these men specifically to have so little experience with women that they go for this idea, and that now it becomes almost like a transaction. We are getting women back from OnlyFans, and then we're giving them to these simp men who have no experience with women, and then the two of them are accepting this arrangement, which will inevitably end in divorce because these women are not going to want these men. And
they lead the like, I see it. Like,
the women lead the relationship.
Yes, yes, and like they don't preach like about. Like, I could not, when I saw this clip, and maybe there was more context of this preacher saying your submission to your husband, like, is like, what if he's not leading you to God? And I'm like, well, how would she know? Like, she's supposed to follow his lead. And where is the question? Like, why would you pick someone that's not leading you to God? And plus, it's like, women, we change our minds every goddamn day. Sorry, gosh darn day. And like, so you don't even know. And so maybe one day you think he's leading you to God, one day you think he's not. Like, that's not supposed to be the choice. The choice is, hey, you married him, you follow his lead. You know, I know people in my family that didn't leave their husbands for like adultery because they believed he would go to hell if they left him. That was the level of like of belief they had.
Working to work it out.
Well, yeah, and like, and faith. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, where they really believed what they said. And that's why, like, I think the men go to church and they're just like, well, the quality of women here is worse. The pastor's gaslighting me because he's telling me the quality of women isn't worse. Yeah, so I'm not, and I'd like to say I like church. I'm for church good, religion, it's all good.
Yes.
But how are we supposed to have good faith conversations if these guys are pandering to women constantly?
Yeah, that was a really interesting topic that I heard you talk about. Because I hadn't thought about it like that, but I have seen something similar where it's like, what's very controversial in Red Pill is this idea that men should have some experience with women. And the church does not encourage that. And when that happens, you end up in a situation like with Steven Crowder. I think Steven Crowder is a great content creator. I think Steven Crowder has some really interesting ideas, but Steven Crowder does not know more about women than me. And I know he doesn't know more about women than me because he didn't get a fucking prenup in the state of Texas. So whatever he wants to say about how this was the first person he was with and he married her, and God forbid if this happens to Ben Shapiro. Because if it happens, the world is going to come down on him because he told all of us, you need to marry the first woman that you need to marry the first woman that you sleep with. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with him saying that. That's totally fine. The problem is when you tell the rest of us who actually wanted experience with women that we were wrong for what we're doing, we're not making those same mistakes, and we are better at picking out those red flags that the church, you're saying that the church is telling us to ignore.
Well, and the issue too is they don't realize like it's a reaction. Like the men sleeping with a bunch of women, I think it's a reaction to the way women are because they don't want to get bamboozled.
Got it.
How are you supposed to know? Because let's be honest, like women will like what's the girl's body? Like girls are gonna lie for days. So how is a guy supposed to know if she's like an actual genuine girl or like a girl that's like been ran through and is just like the born again stuff without having experience with women? And it's not like because I was thinking about it, I'm like the women don't want to get married young.
Yeah.
So like because the guys want to marry the women young.
It's so great that you're bringing up the idea of men having adult content addiction.
Yeah.
They have help for that, seminars for that, but women having an addiction to social media, which causes them The social media causes women to not want to be in monogamous relationships in their early 20s.
Oh my gosh, and this one thing was Rich, one of the guys that reacted to me. I was saying, like, okay, you could argue, like, they'll demonize the men for cheating, okay, or sleeping around. Because, like, if you believe, and you have to have this premise, like, that attention is to women as sex is to men. So that has to be if you don't believe that, then this doesn't make sense.
Sure, of course.
Okay, but so... the women will have open social media accounts that are the preacher's wives or whatever. And maybe they don't have revealing stuff, but the point is Instagram is still the #1 dating app.
Yes.
And they're putting their face on there, which is their beauty, right? And you could argue, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have this, okay?
Yeah.
But this is just the equivalent. But we don't demonize the women for having an open social media account where anybody can message them, but they'll be the first to demonize the men for sleeping with the secretary after their wife hasn't slept with them in 2 years. Like, he's the evil person. And then they'll say things like, I would never work with somebody who cheated or whatever. This person just doesn't have morals. And I'm like, do you understand how condescending this sounds? To me, I'm like, how can we have a normal good faith conversation if you're already demonizing the guy and just saying he's like so horrible, but the woman can do no wrong? Yeah, and so that's my thing is we demonize one, but we don't demonize the other. And my point was more about the double standards versus cheating. But I really didn't want cheating to be the hill I died on. I'm really not like for these, open one-sided relationships. That's like not
polygyny.
No, well, I wouldn't say is that when they're both?
No, polyamory is when they're both. Polygyny is.
You're right. Yeah.
Several.
I'm really not for that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's like conducive for a family.
For
like
sure.
Your dad's screwing the whole time. That's my opinion. But I somehow got accidentally made cheating the hill I was like dying on.
Yeah.
I didn't mean it to be.
Yeah.